Hey everyone, welcome back to Private Club Radio, your industry source for news, media, trends, updates, whether it's communications, marketing, leadership, management, food and beverage, governance. We got you covered. I'm your host, Denny Corby. Thank you so much for being here. It means the world. This episode, I'm chatting with Ira Berkowitz, GM of the Springford Country Club in my home state here in Pennsylvania, and it's a great conversation. We have a lot of good laughs. He's a really good, genuine human being. He was a previous guest on here with Gabe many years ago. But this episode, what I enjoy is why I love the club world is because it's so open and so helpful in so many ways. And this episode reinforces that. Because you don't need to be from the club world to be in the club world. And when I say that, it's, if you enjoy architecture, there's people who specialize in architecture for clubs. If you like accounting and finance and money, there's companies and organizations and people who specialize in that for private clubs. And as long as you have a good work ethic and you're open and you're humble and you're a good human, there's room for you here. Because there's people in the industry who aren't any of those and they're here. No, but this goes to show because he comes from, just like me, the entertainment background. So spoiler alert, shameless plug. If you're looking for really fun club entertainment, head on over to dennycorby.com. I do a killer magic, mind reading, and comedy show for clubs, just saying. But Ira is a saxophone player who is a band leader. And that's how he got his start in clubs, was from performing and doing so many events at clubs. And he just found himself in a position where this kind of sprang up. And it just goes to show everyone has their own unique stories, their own backgrounds. And that's why I love the show. It's why I love chatting with people. Is it's not just learning about, what they're doing right now, but it's what their story is, how they got here, what they learned along the way, and what's gotten them to this point. So he and I talk about one of my favorite things. I ask, how do you balance tradition and innovation? We talk about the pandemic a little bit, even though we're sort of past it, but just how much that had a significant impact on it. And I asked because he's been at his club for 20 years. He's been at his club for 20 years. So for me, in my head, I was wondering like, hey, how, you've seen a huge progression. So what did that look like? Talking about coming in and out of it. I still just find the whole situation fascinating, but and at the root of it, we're talking about building and maintaining super strong relationships with the members and the professionals in the industry, and he opens up and shares how he thought the club world when he first started was like it was a competition, but it's not. We're not in competition. We're all here to help each other and sharing information and learning from other clubs, other club managers, other club professionals is essential for personal and professional growth and success. So this is just a really good conversation. I've chatted for way too long. So please welcome the musically talented, the very fun Ira Berkowitz. So,
Yep.
Mr. Berkowitz, I'm thrilled to have you on. I know you've been on here before, but
Yes.
I love your story. You've been in the club world for how long now?
September 1992.
And it's funny because you know that exact date. Why?
Oh, why? Because I had left the music industry, and I was a band leader playing weddings and bar mitzvahs for almost 20 years. And my wife and I actually met at a large, smorgasbord style restaurant, banquet center, wedding center back in the 70s. And we ended up co-general managers of that place for, 1987 to just the end of 91. We were managing the whole place together. But prior to that, we were running the banquet department. I was there about 19 years. And when that closed and just had the band, I said, do I stay in hospitality? But what do I do? And I actually saw an ad for a country club in the mainline area of Philadelphia. It was for an assistant, and I knew nothing about country clubs other than I played that country club with my band, you know? So what a learning experience.
So, and what that was the day? Wasn't there a funny story around that you were telling me with like you had a gig, but wasn't it the same gig you had the club at or something?
Well, yeah, when I opened a newspaper, I saw this ad. It was Radnor Valley Country Club in Villanova, Pennsylvania. And I said to my wife, I said, I'm going to send my resume for this assistant manager's job at Radnor Valley Country Club. And her reaction was, what do you know about country clubs? I said, I played bar mitzvahs there. I know the building. That was it.
I know the now I know the building. I know the
Right.
layout.
Yeah.
I can manage it.
But yeah.
And then how long were you there for?
Well, I stayed there about 2 years. I left on my own back in 93. So into my second year there, a friend of mine approached me and kind of demanded that I give him my resume because his boss was a member at Springford Country Club in Royersford, PA. And Springford at that time was planning to build an addition and double the size of their buildings. So they were looking for a new manager. My first reaction was, nah, I don't need that. I'm at Radnor Valley, blah, blah, blah. And my GM, she had told me when I got hired that, when she retires, which she told me was about 3 years, that if they like me, I'd become the general manager. I'm like, yeah, right. Okay. But I gave my resume to my buddy and I ended up having an interview at Springford in 93, but they weren't quite ready because they hadn't started construction yet. So the interview went well, but I got the standard letter that says, thanks for interviewing. We promoted our Karen assistant, but there was a handwritten note on the bottom of the letter that says, we'll be in touch. And it was signed by the House Committee chair. So I'm like, what does that mean? Yes, no, or maybe. So I put it off to the side. 14 months goes by, and it was July in 1994. I'm at work at Radnor Valley, and my bar manager approaches me. He says, you're getting a call today. And I said, from who? And he was friends with members here at Springford. He says, from up there. I said, what is up there? And he says, Springford. I said, get out of here. So I was actually going to a friend's wedding that night, so I had a rare Saturday night off. Walk into my house. It's about 3:30 in the afternoon because we had to be at the wedding by 5. Phone's ringing, and I pick it up, and it's the house chairman. We're ready. Are you ready? Can you stop by the club tonight? I said, I'm going to a wedding. He goes, we'll see you Monday morning at 9 a.m. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. So I come back here, Springford, that Monday, 9 o'clock, meet with a couple more guys. Go home, 1 o'clock, the phone's ringing. We need you to meet us again tonight at 5 o'clock at the club president's house. He lives in Valley Forge. Okay, give me directions. This is way before GPS, right? So I go
Literally
to
mapping
the,
it out. That's
yeah.
crazy.
So I go to his house that night. They offer me the job to become manager here, but they're still under construction, including the kitchen. They only had a food truck parked next to the grill room on the lower level to service the members at that time. This is 1994.
Food trucks
And
before they were
yeah,
even cool.
before they were a thing. And then, I told them, I said, listen, you're working out of a construction trailer with the offices. I said, why don't I give Radnor Valley sufficient notice to leave and not start until after Labor Day? So finish out the summer season. And they go, okay, that's a good idea. That's fair. So, next day I went to Radnor, uh, gave my GM my notice. She wasn't too happy, but she said, well, find your replacement. I'm like, oh, all right. So I did a couple searches. I found a guy who was looking to get into country clubs, met with him, hired him, and at least I was able to spend about a month with him in transition, which was good, right?
That's really good.
And I leave there, come here, and it was like 3 months later, my replacement that I replaced myself with at Radnor, he calls me. And he goes, guess what? She quit. I'm now the GM. So he becomes GM. I'm GM here. It's all good, right? But yeah, it's wild. But the cool thing about, coming into a country club management, and, I didn't major in that. I was a music major. I'm a tenor sax player. And the private club industry, which I didn't realize membership owned like we are, there's really no competition. So that as the newbie at the time, the guys I'm meeting who were general managers you become a member of the Club Managers Association, right? And we have the Philadelphia and vicinity chapter. Well, they take you under their wing and they're explaining that you're not in a restaurant business. You're in member dining. You have 300 bosses. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? But until I started going to the education sessions, conferences, I remember specifically Greg Patterson stood up there and mentions that, the buzz and the love. And if you don't know you're in a happiness business, you should get out of it. And that's when the bells clicked. We're not for profit. We're a home away from home. All those sayings are so true about a club. It's a family-based business. Everybody has your back, employees, members, everybody. So it's a cool thing.
What's it
Been in it
been
a long
like?
time.
I was going to say, what's it been like being in the same club for 20 years?
Okay, so mine's a little bit different. And when I was last on this program with Gabe, he said, never burn a bridge, right? So how I left Radnor, gave him plenty of notice, replaced myself, come to Springford. We were pretty much the only game in town as a private club back then in the 90s. It's interesting that we're Western Montgomery County, suburb of Philadelphia, but Eastern Montgomery County is saturated with country clubs. They're on top of each other. Here, there's only a few. We're pretty far from one another. But in 2004, another club opened up about 10-minute drive from here, a one-owner private club. And they gave us the first time this place had competition. And I brought in creative golf marketing, and we did some programs here, kept us on track. But the club industry is political, right? Would you say? Yeah, just a little. So the board changed a little bit, and let me just say that we parted ways after my 12-year tenure here at Springford. And at that point, I was like, okay, what do I do? And actually, when I left here, I helped him out with some weddings for the next month. I actually met my replacement and spent the day with him. Because if you're going to stay in this business, you're going to know that person anyway. So I leave here. Actually, there wasn't a club open in the area that I was interested in. And I said, I need to work. So I ended up, a buddy of mine was the general manager at a Nissan dealership, just around, pretty much around the corner from this club. And I ended up selling cars, right? But the crazy part is I'm selling cars to members at Springford, right? And they found me. So, so this is 2006, right? I'm doing this. January of 2007, a friend of mine who was a club manager, a general manager, who I sold the car to, he called me and he said, "You're done selling cars. When you get home tonight, you send your resume to Metal Lands Country Club in Bluebell, Pennsylvania." My first reaction was, nah, I don't think so. And then, and now in the
Why?
club world years ago, it's different today and it's healthier today. But years ago, there was certain tags for clubs. You had Italian clubs, Irish clubs, Jewish clubs, blah, blah, blah. So my last name's Berkowitz, right? So he says, Berkowitz, it's Meadowlands. I said, are you trying to say something, a Jewish thing? He goes, yeah. So I got home, read the job description, showed it to my wife. It was almost identical what I did here at Springford. Ended up sending my resume to Meadowlands. I did like 3 interviews with them and was offered the general manager's job down there. And so I started in '07 at Metal Lands, which is only about a half-hour ride from my house. Figured, okay, let's see how this goes. Now, I was at Metal Lands until just about the end of 2015. So I started there in 2007. They were selling the club, the members were selling the club as, it, let's say the club needed to diversify a little bit. And my last December of 14, besides a Hanukkah party, I had brunch with Santa. And April 15, in addition to Passover Seder's, we did a spring event with the Easter Bunny.
Whoa.
You have to do that, you know? My wife converted for me, right? Okay, so we celebrate everything. And the club at that point went through some stuff, and I knew it was going to be sold, but I wasn't really actively looking to go anywhere. I figured, okay, it's going to be sold to one gentleman who I knew, and his mother was a member of the club. And he had just purchased a restaurant right around the corner from the club. It's very famous, the Bluebell Inn. And I figured, okay, I guess stay on, see how this pans out. Now, again, I'm not really actively looking. The end of September of 2015, I get this phone call from the current president at Springford Country Club. And he says to me, I have two questions for you. Say yes or no. And I said, okay, what's the first question? He says, are you looking? I said, look, you know so-and-so is buying the club. And did you hear I interviewed at another place in Exton, but it's too far. I'm not driving to Exton. He goes, yeah, I heard you interviewed. And it's because a guy from Springford who was at that club asked me to interview.
That's
So I just
funny.
did it for the exercise of interviewing. And his second question was, do you want to talk to me about coming back to Springford? Now, that's a headspin. And I said, well, it's been 10 years since I walked out the door. And I had asked a few questions, including who's still there and was my old assistant back? And he said, yeah. And I went, wow. And financially, they were stable, which is a good thing. And I walked back in here December 1st of 2015. Been here now since then. So I did a 12-year run. Now I am in over an 8-year run at the same club with a little break of 9 years at a different club in between. And the first one, I stayed 2 years and left on my own behalf. But I left Metal Lands on my own behalf, which is now called Bluestone, by the way. So new owners, new name. But yeah, when I first got into this business, and it took a few months from a lot of head spins, like, what the heck am I in? It's different. I opened up one of the club management magazines and I saw the tenure for a general manager at a country club is 2.5 years. I was like, oh my God, what did I come into, right? I don't want to travel this country. I'm a guy who likes to stay in a spot for a while.
Yeah.
And whatever the heck I've done, I think I've done that,
I was gonna say
So,
it's very impressive to have that level of a run, knowing that. Like in yeah. So what if can you when you left Springford the first time,
right.
can you go into like what was going on there? Can you go into that at all, or is that a little bit under?
It was a board change, a major board change. You
And
kind
what
of,
does that and what does that mean? Like what's a major board change?
well, when you have a couple spots open for board elections or members to get on the board, and you only have, let's say, three openings and three people running, everything's good. But when you have three openings and six people are running, there's agendas and egos involved.
Mm,
And when that happens, the handwriting's kind of on the wall. And one guy started micromanaging me a lot. My assistant, who was here at that point in 2015, no, 2005, when things got crazy. She started 1985. She was 16 years old. So by 2005, she's here 20 years. She runs the office. She's the assistant club manager.
yeah.
She left. And I was like, oh boy.
Ooh.
And I hired another person, but you could see it coming. And they actually asked me to interview for my own position. And I was like, this is crazy. But I did it. And I was like, I'll just stay until they ask for my keys.
Yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't until March 31st of '06 they asked for the keys. But this was the crazy part. They said, "How many weddings do you have booked in April? Because the new guy's not starting until May 1st." I said, "I have three." "Well, can you still run those? And can you spend a half a day with the new guy?" Now, where the heck am I going, right? I don't want to make enemies. I live out here. I got friends at this club. And I did all that, you know?
Yeah.
And I left. And when you look back, some things happen for the best, right? And I think that was a good move. I ended up going to another club eventually, being Metal Lands.
Right.
And the funny part is, people would ask me, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but they go, "How does Metal Lands compare to Springford?" And Springford is a down to earth, just a friendly membership, great membership. I said, Metal Lands, it's the Jewish version of Springford, right? So, and there's a couple differences, cultural differences. But the crazy part is in 2010, a group of members from Meadowlands played out here at Springford in what they call the Gap matches in April, and they had to track me down. "Oh, we played your old club, Ira. We were at Springford." I said, "How was it?" "Great golf course, really nice, down to earth guys we played with." And I said, "Listen to what you're describing. You're describing the non-Jewish version of Meadowlands, right?" It just is a joke.
That's funny.
But yeah, I mean, every club has its own personality, right? And
Right.
I think a lot of it also is based on location. Where's the club located? And I really think what happened here is there were a few individuals back in '04, '05, '06 that tried to change the personality of this club. Uh, if you're familiar with Philadelphia, you got Philadelphia, you have suburbs, you have the main line, and we're not in the main line.
Yeah.
I think they tried to turn Royersford and Limerick into the main line. Sorry, you know.
I
Now,
gotcha.
the growth out here is tremendous. I mean, if you're familiar with King of Prussia,
Yep.
King of Prussia looks like Philadelphia now, looks like a city. And what used to be an area out here with very few stores and houses, growth explosion. It's like King of Prussia West out here. The outlets out here in Limerick are called Philadelphia Premium Outlets. We're 40 minutes from Philly. There's another little town called Oaks that has the Greater Philadelphia Convention Center. These were, what I used to call boondocks when I moved out
Yeah.
here. But yeah, I mean, you're not going to change my personality. You're not going to change your personality. And you're not going to change the personality of a country club that is now this year 100 years old.
Congrats.
So a lot of celebrations going on this year.
Has the situation that you ran into, first time, has it inched closer to that sort of position again? Like, has it gotten to a point where it was almost like, oh, this might be happening again? I might be looking for something else, or has it been more? I don't want to say more controlled, but is it like have there been better captains in place? But and by that I mean like people on the board and stuff. Like
Yeah.
has that issue ever almost come back to light, or has it been fairly calm
Well,
in that realm?
it's been a good group to work with. And the funny part was when the current president asked me to come back, and I knew what had happened here. This place was off track.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Look, I think we have the right team in place if I come back. It's not one person waving a magic wand. Oh, so and so's back, everything's going to be better. You have to have a team effort. I can't do this myself." And we had that in place. We still have it in place. And, you know, I'm at an age that don't do that to me again, or you won't have to open the door. I'll give you my keys. No, you
Yeah.
know, no, it's, yeah. So as I'm the same age as my club president, and he said a couple years ago, we're both in the ninth inning.
Wow. Thanks for the heads up.
Thanks for the heads up. Yeah, I keep doing it until my body says, "Hey, stop doing it."
What's it been like since 2020?
Oh God,
You've been there, you've
yeah.
seen a lot, and a lot has changed. And I think, it's cool I get to talk to somebody, because I think with the pandemic, so much did change. People switched positions, companies, people left the club world, people came into the club world. So you being in the club way before, and now I want to say way after the pandemic, is it, so what has that been like, the
Well,
switch from 2020 to now 2024?
so up until 2020, so when I came back 15, every year we were growing and doing things in a positive manner. Membership growth was happening again. Party business was coming back. And then the world stopped March 15th, 2020. At 4 o'clock Sunday, get out of Dodge. We're out of here. We're walking out. Everything is closed. And the crazy part, every state had different mandates and rules.
Oh, I know. Even
Pennsylvania.
counties, it was a different
Oh,
area. It
yeah,
was nuts. The wild, wild west.
it was. So our clubhouse in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, you were not allowed to come back into the building for 102 days. They had these color phases: red phase,
I
yellow,
remember.
and green. Now, golf was not allowed to happen at all until May 1st, but then they allowed golf with a lot of restrictions. The only thing I was able to open up was one of my windows at my son's car is at the turn. So we had the barriers, we had masks, we're doing, some sandwiches, beverages. That's all we were doing. And it was weird. I said, oh my God, I'm operating a golf course and a hot dog stand. This is it. That's all we're allowed to do. Members could not come into the building. We had facilities on the golf course, for that. And then June 26th shows up where Montgomery County goes green phase, and the state puts out a 17-page document how to come back inside. And it's all written for the restaurant industry, which, are we a restaurant? I don't think so, but we're following the rules. We played the game. And one of the things was social distance, 50% seating capacity inside, and masks, other than when you're eating. But if you get up to move around, put the mask back on. So we basically did that. We shut down half our tables and whatnot. But that only lasted 3 weeks. And then the rules changed down to 25% indoor seating, and a meal is required to have a cocktail. Okay. Again, we followed the rules. Some of the members like, what are you doing? I said, look, we have a liquor license. Just protect a liquor license and just go with the flow. This will end eventually, right? And everybody behaved pretty well. You had to have reservations for everything. Dining, coming to the swimming pool, you had to have reservations, block a time.
I don't mean
Because
to interrupt. I just totally remembered you, in order to have a cocktail, you had to have a meal,
yeah,
because there was, I don't know if it was around my area, your area, somewhere in PA, some bar restaurant where if you can order a Lunchable. Remember the
oh
Lunchables in
yeah,
the grocery store? You can order
right,
a Lunchable and that was your meal, and then
right.
you can get your drink. So I forgot about that. Oh my goodness, things were wild. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it was crazy. So the pool reservations. Now we are a no tea time club. So members show up, they check into the pro shop. The pro shop gives them the tea time, and it's easier to meet new people, because if a group doesn't have the person and a member shows up, hey, you want to play with these people? They're your new
That's
friends.
cool.
It's great. But you had to have tea times during COVID, right? So the clique started forming and all that. And then we got rid of the tea time things. We went back to normal with golf. It was June of 21. And then when everything but what happened? The world shut down in March, okay, 2020. You can't come into the building. We were actually having our board meetings in the club president's parking lot at his office outside. And you're thinking, are we done? Is this over? But when we got back into the building on June 26th for dining again, there was this crazy euphoria. Like, oh my God, the members, this is the only place we're going to go. We're not going to restaurants. We feel safe here. And the industry was saying, watch what happens. Your club is going to be the staycation. And it seemed like nobody was traveling. And our Place was packed. Now, golf being an outdoor sport, all of a sudden, hotter than when Tiger Woods put that, thing in golf in the 90s that all these country clubs were being built, a pandemic promotion for the golf industry. We took in well over 200 memberships during COVID, okay? Unheard of. Uh, we were able to do a renovation on the entire golf course, over $1.5 million, no assessment, no bank loans, paid for. It was unbelievable. So Dr. Fauci, as Steve Graves says, was the membership director. I read that one of his LinkedIn articles.
That's a good line. That's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah,
That's really funny. I'm
and
I'm
yeah,
I'm I'm
and
clipping that.
so, but we have full membership, 300 full equity owners. We have a wait list with limited play, and it's the last
Still?
time. Yeah, we have
Hell
about
yeah.
30 people on it. But the last time we had a wait list like this was the late 90s, prior to 9/11. You know, yeah. So,
How are you able to maintain that wait list? Because now here's where it's getting I don't want to say fun, but
mhm,
watching now, because the pandemic was a savior for a lot of people,
yeah.
and a lot of the clubs that needed help got the help in whatever ways you want to see it, from PPOs to just the membership influx. But a lot of them just kind of patched holes, or not even patched, just did whatever. And now, as things are starting to level out, they're back to where they were. Now they're back to struggling. Now they don't have a wait list and stuff. So how have you been able to keep it and maintain that level?
That's a great question. We still get a ton of membership inquiries every week, almost every day. I'm sending stuff out all the time, giving tours. Membership committee is pretty active here. Um, we didn't think we'd still have a list this long. You just don't know anymore. You play this world day by day these days. Um, this club was usually really easy to predict on what's going to happen, when, where. And, prior to, just to give you an example, prior to COVID, we would put out our schedule for food service in our newsletter. Here's the schedule for the month. Since COVID, we still just put out a schedule every week on an email. This is our food service schedule this week, subject to changes, because you never know what is gonna happen. So,
Yeah.
and the membership's great; they get it, So,
Well, no, no, you're right. It goes back to what you said. Every club has their own personality, their own
mhm.
thing, and it sounds like everyone's in the right place. So that's really good. One of my favorite questions to ask is, especially someone like you who's been in the industry for a minute and in the same club for a lot of it. How are you balancing tradition and innovation?
Well, this year is interesting because of the 100th year anniversary. A lot of our typical events that we do, they're kind of putting those off to the side. So every month, an event is a different decade. We started with a different type of New Year's Eve party, and every month we're going back in time until the end of the year. We'll be in the 20s.
That's
So I
cool.
actually just booked a band for a Roaring 20s party.
Ooh.
As far as how this club operates, it's a very golf centric club. It always has been. We don't have rackets here, and we
Mhm.
have a decent pool, and the food is really good, and the events are fun. But one of the things was that happened with COVID, with the seating issues for limitations, 50%, 25%, right? When it hit 25%, and we had 200 players on a Saturday and Sunday on a golf course, and my grill room, which has about 100 seats, is now down to 25 usable seats. What do you do? So you have a banquet space that you weren't allowed to have banquets or gatherings or dance floors. Forget it. But it's dead real estate. But our banquet room has an outdoor deck And our primary dining facilities are dining rooms and banquet rooms on the second floor. So I said, well, let's figure out how to use this dead space. I don't know when I'm getting these weddings back, if I get them back at all. Well, the membership looks at the outdoor banquet deck and goes, that's where we want to go. So quickly, we purchased mobile computers for point of sale on mobile carts. They said, can you get us a couple big screen TVs to put outside? Okay, we did that. Put some fans out there. Now, this thing's covered with an awning.
Yeah.
And we turned it into what I call the second floor grill room, right? Our grill rooms kind of, they come and go. There's no reservations in there like the dining rooms. And they flooded this banquet deck. That was their new home. Overlook the best view in the place. Now, COVID is starting to end, but not the banquet deck usage. And whenever I would have a private party up there, well, you can't have the members up there too.
Yeah.
You're crashing somebody's event. They actually told me, probably the winter of 22, the board cut back on the amount of banquets and non-member stuff that we're doing. And I was like, wow.
Oh.
I get it. No one's ever told me not to sell, but I got it. And this is true. A few months later, the Private Club Advisor newsletter, you're familiar with that?
Yeah.
The top article said exactly that. What my board told me to cut back. And I showed my office staff, read this. They go, did they write this about Springford? I said, no, this is national, So and that's one cool thing about like a newsletter like that you get, anything in this industry, it's not just us. It's happening at other clubs. So the fact that years ago, if you wanted to find out what was going on, you went to an education event, you physically went. Everything's online now. Every morning I get the questions of the day from club managers across the country. And some of them, are happening here. Some go, oh, that's interesting. Just read this stuff. But the sharing of information in this industry is unique. We're a private club who's member owned is not competing with another private club who's member owned because they all have reciprocal privileges to go play these other places. So yeah, that was the first real learning curve for me when I started at Radnor Valley. Why is this different? That's a good thing. So, but they are political. There's no
Of
doubt
course.
about it.
Of
The
course.
structure is a governance model. So,
Well, sir, it has been absolute pleasure. We've chatted a couple of times. I love chatting with you. So much
yeah,
fun.
I left my saxophone home, man. So
I was just going to make a saxophone joke. Damn you. All right.
I play once a year, New Year's Eve here. That's it.
Little you're actually playing. It's just going through the speakers. You're just walking around. That'd be fun.
Well, yeah, if you go to our Facebook page, you'll see what I did this New Year's Eve.
Phenomenal musician. But sir, thank you so much for being on. Really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. Appreciate it.
Hope you all enjoyed that episode. I know I did, chatting with Ira. Such a hoot. You know what to do. If you're enjoying the content, if you haven't done so already, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, wherever, 5 stars, 4 stars, a review means the world. We share a lot on social media. If you can share a post, that means the world. Share it with a colleague, that means the world. You all mean the world. I'm going to stop saying the word world. world. Oh man, it's getting late. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for listening. If you haven't already, sign up for our newsletter so you can stay up to date with all of our episodes, all of our content that we're putting out. We're doing some really cool, fun stuff here, and I'm excited to be sharing it with you. So until next time, catch you on the flippity flip.